He paid her $10 million to carry his late wife's children. But what happens when the doctor reveals the truth, that the babies growing inside her are biologically hers? Welcome back. It's me again, Victoria. If you love powerful black love stories, emotional billionaire dramas, and unexpected twists that keep you on the edge until the final moment, hit that subscribe button right now. Like this video, share it with someone who loves a good story, and let's dive in. Because tonight's story will change everything you thought you knew about love, loss, and second chances. The Hampton Legacy Ball was the kind of event people waited a lifetime to be invited to. Gold light spilling across crystal chandeliers, the clink of champagne glasses, and the sound of old money pretending it still knew how to laugh. Cameras flashed, diamonds gleamed, and soft jazz poured through the ballroom like warm honey. At the center of it all stood Damon Pierce, tall, broad-shouldered, smooth brown skin under a tailored black tuxedo that looked cut from silence itself. Billionaire investor, real estate magnate, philanthropist, widower. The kind of man every headline called elusive, and every room still turned toward. He wasn't smiling. He never did anymore. On the massive LED screen behind the stage, a tribute video played. Vanessa Pierce, his late wife, radiant and laughing beside schoolchildren from her literacy foundation. The audience murmured and dabbed their eyes. Damon's stayed dry. His expression didn't move, but his knuckles whitened around his glass. When the applause died down, he set the drink aside, nodded to the host, and quietly slipped through the terrace doors. The winter air outside hit cold and clean, slicing through perfume and chatter. He loosened his bow tie, let the wind cut through the noise, and finally exhaled. Beautiful night to disappear, huh? He turned. Dr. Lionel Brooks, in a tux that fit like an apology, stood behind him clutching a phone. The man's eyes darted, part guilt, part nerves. Damon remembered the doctor from the fertility wing at Sterling Memorial. "Tell me it's done," Damon said flatly. "It's ready," Lionel replied. "All protocols cleared. The surrogate's gone through every test twice. Transfer scheduled for tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Damon nodded once. The decision final. "Good." Lionel hesitated. "Damon, this isn't... You sure you're emotionally..." "Don't," Damon cut in. "I'm not paying for therapy. I'm paying for continuity." The doctor swallowed. "Of course. I'll see you at the clinic." When he left, Damon stood alone, staring out at the frozen bay. In the ballroom behind him, the crowd toasted Vanessa's legacy. Out here, the man who'd loved her was trying to rebuild her dream with science and money, and maybe a little bit of guilt. Across town, on the south edge of Atlanta, Nova Carter sat in a cramped apartment where the heat coughed more than it worked. She'd just signed her name to a contract thicker than her nursing textbooks. $10 million. Enough to buy her brother a new life, pay off the medical debts that haunted her family, and maybe, just maybe, breathe again. She looked at the envelope on the table. Her hands trembled before she tucked it away in a drawer beside a photo of her mother. "You'd tell me not to do it," she whispered, "but I don't see another way." The next morning, dawn poured soft light through the tinted windows of Sterling Fertility Institute. White walls, polished marble, air that smelled like disinfectant and anxiety. Damon Pierce signed paperwork at the front desk, silent as a verdict. "Your surrogate's already prepped," the nurse said. He didn't ask her name. He didn't want to know her face. Attachment was a luxury he could no longer afford. Inside the operating suite, Nova lay on a narrow table, IV in her arm, hair tucked under a surgical cap. Her pulse monitor beeped too fast. She told herself it was just nerves. When Damon walked past the window to speak with the doctor, she caught a glimpse of him. Tall, calm, eyes like polished obsidian. There was something heavy in his aura. Something grief never fully buried. She didn't know who he was, not really. All she knew was that this man's story had brought her here, and that whatever grew inside her body next would change everything. Dr. Brooks entered, voice gentle. Nova, everything's on schedule. Try to breathe. She nodded, forcing a smile. Guess I'm about to become part of somebody's miracle. Lionel hesitated. That's one way to put it. He turned to his team. All right, let's begin. What no one noticed, what even Lionel didn't realize until hours later, was that one file folder on his desk had been switched. 2 patients, both scheduled for embryo transfers that morning. 2 nearly identical patient numbers. 1 wrong digit. By the time the procedure ended, destiny had already gone off script. 2 months later, the world looked exactly the same, except for the nausea. Nova woke each morning with dizziness, fatigue, and a belly that already felt foreign. She kept her appointments, followed every instruction, and stayed quiet, like the contract demanded. But the dreams were strange. Vivid flashes of faces she didn't know, laughter that didn't belong to her, and sometimes a man's voice whispering her name. That afternoon, Dr. Brooks called her into his office. His usual calm was gone. Papers scattered the desk, genetic charts glowing on the monitor behind him. Nova, he began. I need you to sit down. Is something wrong with the babies? He rubbed his forehead. Not with them, with everything else. He slid a document across the desk. DNA sequences, percentages, words she didn't fully understand, except the bold header at the top. Maternal match, 99.9%, Nova Carter. Her stomach dropped. That can't be right. I ran it 3 times, he whispered. The embryos we implanted. They weren't from the late Mrs. Pierce. They're yours. Your eggs. You're the biological mother. The room tilted. Her fingers went cold. You're saying the babies are yours and Damon Pierce's? Her heartbeat thundered. That's impossible. I never... I know. It was a labeling error. My error. He swallowed hard. Nova, I'm so sorry. Before she could answer, the door opened. Damon Pierce stepped in, immaculate as ever, a storm barely held behind his expression. What's going on? His tone was sharp, all business. Lionel's voice wavered. There's been a mistake in the embryo transfer. Damon's eyes narrowed. Clarify. The embryos implanted in the surrogate, in Miss Carter, are not your late wife's. They're genetically hers. For a long second, silence filled the room. Then Damon's voice came low and dangerous. You're telling me I paid $10 million for a stranger to carry her own children? Dr. Brooks winced. It wasn't intentional. Do you have any idea what this means? Damon snapped. My wife's memory, her legacy, this entire process was built around bringing her children into the world. Nova stood, trembling. Mr. Pierce, I swear I didn't know. I signed every paper they gave me. I never even saw your name until today. He turned on her. You expect me to believe that? $10 million. And a miracle just happens to land in your womb? Convenient. Her eyes glistened. You think I planned this? You think I'd choose to carry a billionaire's children for fun? Damon took a step closer, voice low. I think you saw an opportunity. Then you don't know me at all, she whispered. Something in her tone made him pause. For a flicker of a second, he saw, not a gold digger, but a woman cornered by fate, terrified, proud, and unwilling to bow. It unsettled him more than he cared to admit. He straightened his cuffs. This ends cleanly. You'll carry the pregnancy to term. My lawyers will handle compensation and custody. After that, we'll go our separate ways. Nova blinked hard. You can't just erase me from their lives. Watch me, he said, and walked out. The door clicked shut. Nova sank into the chair, breath shaking, tears cutting down her cheeks. Lionel reached across the desk, guilt etched deep into his face. "I'll fix this," he whispered. "Somehow." She looked up, eyes fierce through the tears. "No, doctor, you won't. Because some mistakes don't get fixed. They get lived through." Outside, Damon stepped into the sunlight, but it didn't reach him. His phone buzzed. A message from his mother, Celeste Pierce. "You looked tense on the newsfeed tonight. Call me. Love you." He didn't call. He just stared at the message, thumb hovering, then slid the phone into his pocket. He'd built empires on control. Tonight, he'd lost it completely. And somewhere, in a quiet apartment on the other side of the city, the woman he blamed for it all lay awake, one hand over her growing belly, whispering to the 3 heartbeats inside her. "I don't know what kind of world we're walking into," Nova said softly. "But I promise you this. I'm not letting anyone take you away. Not him. Not anyone." Outside, thunder rolled low across the Atlanta sky, as if the universe itself had just cleared its throat before the storm. The first time Nova Carter saw the Pierce estate, she thought it was a museum pretending to be a home. 3 acres of sculpted gardens, black marble fountains that didn't know when to stop flowing, and a driveway so long it made visitors question their own worth halfway through. The car stopped in front of the main house. White pillars gleamed under the afternoon sun. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect. The kind of perfect money buys to hide what it can't fix. She stepped out slowly, one hand on her small belly, the other clutching the strap of her purse like it might keep her steady. The driver, quiet and polite, nodded toward the door. "Mr. Pierce is expecting you, ma'am." "Expecting," she murmured. "Right." Inside, the house was colder than it looked. Air-conditioned silence, polished floors that echoed too loud. Every photo on the wall was a portrait of absence. Vanessa Pierce in charity galas. Vanessa cutting ribbons. Vanessa with that same angelic smile that refused to fade even in death. Nova stopped in front of one frame. Vanessa, radiant in a cream dress, had her arm looped through Damon's. They looked untouchable, like they'd built their love from blueprints and bank statements. "You shouldn't stare too long," a soft voice said from behind her. Nova turned. The woman descending the staircase looked like time had learned to move out of her way. Celeste Pierce, Damon's mother. Silver gray hair perfectly waved, skin smooth. Eyes sharp as glass. "You must be Ms. Carter." "Yes, ma'am." Nova's voice came out smaller than she wanted. Celeste studied her, gaze slow and deliberate. "You're younger than I expected. I get that a lot. And you're the one carrying my son's children." Nova hesitated. "That's, what they tell me." Celeste's lips curved slightly. "You sound uncertain." "I'm certain about them," Nova said, one hand on her belly. "I'm just not certain about everything else." Celeste's expression didn't change, but something softened in her eyes. A flicker of recognition, maybe. "You'll learn quickly that everything else is where the trouble hides." Damon appeared at the top of the stairs, dressed in black slacks and a crisp white shirt rolled at the sleeves. No tie this time, but every inch of him still looked like discipline carved into flesh. "Mother," he said, "you didn't tell me you'd come early." "I wanted to meet the woman making me a grandmother," Celeste said lightly. "You can stop pretending this is just business." Damon's jaw tightened. "That's exactly what it is." Nova looked at him. Tall, calm, emotion buried under command. But his eyes betrayed him. They flicked toward her belly, quick but tender, before he looked away. Celeste sighed. "You sound just like your father. Every sentence is a contract." Damon ignored her and motioned for Nova to follow. "Let's talk in private." Nova followed him down a hallway lined with art that probably cost more than her old apartment building. He led her into a glass-walled study overlooking the garden. It was quiet enough to hear the fountain outside. He didn't offer her a seat. She sat anyway. "You'll stay here for the remainder of the pregnancy," he said. There's staff, private security, medical personnel on call, and a separate wing for you. You'll have everything you need. I didn't agree to move in. It's safer this way. Safer for who? You or me? He looked at her then. Really looked. Both. Nova crossed her arms. You can't just control me because you have money. You signed a contract. I signed to carry a baby, not to live in your house, like a kept woman. He exhaled, frustration flashing. You think I want this either? You think I plan to have some stranger carrying... He stopped himself before saying the word, my. Go ahead, she said quietly. Say it. Carrying your mistake? He rubbed his temples. I didn't mean it like that. Yes, you did, she said. You meant every word. But let me make one thing clear. I didn't ask for your money, and I sure didn't ask for your pity. I'm not your problem. For a second, something like guilt passed over his face. You're not my problem, he said softly. But they're my responsibility. Nova stood. And mine. The tension in the air was so thick it could be touched. Finally, Damon said, Fine. Stay if you want. Leave if you must. But if you go, you'll be hounded by press, lawyers, and people who don't see you as a person. Just a headline. I can protect you from that. Nova looked out the window, voice low. You can't protect me from being judged. That already started the day I signed that contract. He didn't respond. He just turned toward the bar, poured himself a glass of bourbon, and downed it like a man trying to drown memory. She took a slow breath. Do you drink every time the world reminds you it's not perfect? He turned, a faint smirk touching his mouth. You ask too many questions. Someone has to. For a fleeting moment, there was silence, an uneasy truce wrapped in curiosity. Then a knock broke it. Celeste entered, carrying a tray with 2 cups of tea. I thought you might both need something stronger than pride, she said, setting them down. You two have the energy of people who either need to fight it out or fall in love and get it over with. Damon groaned. Mother. Nova blinked. Excuse me? Celeste waved her hand. I said what I said. I may be old, but I'm not blind. Damon pinched the bridge of his nose. She's not staying long. Celeste arched an eyebrow. You mean like Vanessa wasn't staying long when she first moved in? That woman had you twisted in a week. Vanessa is not... Damon stopped himself, tone softening. This is different. Celeste looked between them, something calculating behind her smile. Of course it is. Because this one challenges you. Nova swallowed a nervous laugh. I'm not trying to challenge anyone. Oh, honey. You already are, Celeste said warmly. By existing. Damon turned to leave, clearly done with the conversation. I'll have someone show you to your room, Ms. Carter. Nova glanced at Celeste, who gave her a reassuring nod. He looks angry, Nova whispered. He looks alive, Celeste said. That's more than I've seen in 2 years. Later that night, Nova sat alone in the guest suite. A space bigger than her entire apartment. The room smelled faintly of lilies. On the dresser, a framed photo of Damon and Vanessa had been removed, replaced with a vase of white roses. She traced her fingers over the cool glass of the window, staring at her reflection. What did I walk into? She whispered. Downstairs, Damon stood by the fireplace, staring into the flames. Royce Miller, his attorney and best friend, leaned against the mantel. You can't keep her here forever, Royce said. She's carrying my children. She's carrying her children, too. You forget that? Damon's jaw flexed. I'm not forgetting. I'm preventing chaos. From where I'm standing, chaos already moved in. Damon shot him a look, but Royce just chuckled. Don't act like you don't notice her. I saw your face when she walked in. You looked like you saw a ghost. She's not my type. She's breathing. That's your type these days. Damon turned away. You done? Not even close, Royce said. If this goes public, the story writes itself. Billionaire hires surrogate, ends up the father anyway. The tabloids will eat that alive. Then we make sure it doesn't go public, Damon said. Tighten NDAs, restrict staff access, and keep everyone quiet, Royce sighed. You're trying to solve a human problem with a business strategy. Because it's all I know, Damon said quietly. Upstairs, Nova lay awake, unable to sleep. Every creak of the mansion sounded like a warning. She touched her belly, feeling a faint flutter that made her heart twist. Hey, she whispered, half laughing, half crying. Guess it's just you and me in this house full of ghosts. Outside, the wind rustled the magnolias, and downstairs, Celeste Pierce watched from the shadows of the hall, a knowing look in her eyes. She'd seen this before, the spark between a stubborn man and a woman who refused to disappear. Only this time, she prayed the ending wouldn't hurt as much as the last one. Because in the Pierce family, love had never come without collateral damage. The morning started too quietly for a house that big. Birds chirped outside the window, soft and unaware. While inside the Pierce estate, the silence felt staged. Like everyone was holding their breath for something they couldn't name. Nova woke to the sound of footsteps in the hall. She sat up, brushing her curls out of her face, the soft sheets pooling around her legs. The air smelled faintly of jasmine. Someone must have replaced the flowers again. Another small, calculated kindness that somehow still felt like control. She dressed simply, a soft gray sweater and jeans, before stepping into the corridor. The house was immaculate, but cold. It wasn't a home. It was an exhibit of what grief does when it's dressed in money. As she walked toward the kitchen, she heard voices, low, urgent, and male. Damon's voice among them. She's not leaving, he said. And she shouldn't have to, Celeste replied sharply. The woman's pregnant with your children. She's pregnant because of a mistake, Celeste's tone sharpened. And yet, you've built an entire wing for that mistake to live in. Nova froze at the doorway. Damon stood by the window, back turned, sleeves rolled up, tension written across every line of his shoulders. Celeste sat at the breakfast table, unbothered, sipping tea like she'd already won. When Damon finally noticed Nova standing there, the conversation died midair. Morning, Nova said softly, pretending she hadn't heard. Celeste smiled faintly. Good morning, dear. Did you sleep well? Still getting used to the space, Nova said, forcing a smile. I imagine it's an adjustment, Celeste said warmly. You know, this house hasn't felt alive in a long time. Damon cut in, voice curt. Mother, don't... I'm just saying, she interrupted. It's nice to have someone here who actually speaks at breakfast. Nova gave a polite nod, walking toward the counter. I'll grab something to eat and head outside. I don't want to interrupt. You're not interrupting, Celeste said, shooting Damon a look that told him to behave. But Damon didn't move. He just watched Nova in silence, the way her hands trembled slightly as she poured coffee, the way she pretended not to feel his eyes on her. Finally, Celeste stood. I'll leave you two to it. Damon, don't scare her off before lunch. When she left, the room was painfully quiet. You overheard, Damon said finally. I wasn't trying to. I didn't say you were. Nova turned to face him. You know, for someone so obsessed with control, you have no idea how to talk to people. He looked almost amused. Is that your professional opinion? It's my human opinion, she said. You act like every sentence has to come with a disclaimer. He leaned against the counter, crossing his arms. You think I enjoy this situation? That I enjoy having my life turned upside down by a lab error? Nova met his gaze. You think I enjoy being treated like I'm some problem to manage? Something flashed in his eyes. Anger, maybe guilt. You're not a problem. You're a complication. That's not better. Maybe not. But it's honest. Nova shook her head and laughed bitterly. You really don't get it, do you? Enlighten me. I didn't sign up for your world. I didn't ask for your pity or your mansion. I just wanted to help my family. That's it. Now I'm living in a house that feels like a mausoleum while you pretend I don't exist. He straightened. You exist more than you realize. The way he said it made her heart skip. Not from romance, but from the weight behind it. It sounded almost like confession. Before she could respond, the sound of a phone vibrating broke the silence. Damon pulled his from his pocket, his face shifting as he read the screen. Damon? She asked cautiously. He looked up, jaw tight. Someone leaked the story. What story? He turned the screen toward her. The headline was already spreading online. Billionaire Damon Pierce expecting children with surrogate. Sources claim it's more than a contract. Nova's throat went dry. Beneath the headline was a photo of her. Blurry, but unmistakable. Entering the clinic months ago. Oh my God. They know your name too, Damon said. Nova Carter. It's everywhere. Her hand flew to her mouth. How? Who would? Someone at the clinic, he cut in. Or someone on the payroll. It doesn't matter who. What matters is containment. Containment? She snapped. I'm not some biohazard. This is my life. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing. You don't understand. These people will dig up everything about you. Your job history, your family, your debts. They'll spin it until you look like a scammer who trapped a billionaire. I didn't trap anyone. I know that, he said quickly, meeting her eyes. But the world won't care. Her voice trembled. So what happens now? He hesitated. Damage control. Meaning? He exhaled. We'll release a statement. Something clean. A story people can digest. She stared at him, horrified. A story? You're going to turn my life into PR? He looked torn. The businessman fighting the man. You have no idea how ruthless this world is, Nova. One wrong move and it'll destroy you. She shook her head, tears welling. Maybe I don't have your money, Damon, but I'm not fragile. I've been surviving long before your world even noticed I existed. He softened. You're shaking. I'm angry, she whispered. That's not the same thing. Before either could say more, Celeste re-entered holding her tablet. You both need to see this. She placed it on the table, the same article, now viral, with hundreds of comments flooding in. Some cruel, some prying, most scandalous. Damon, they're outside the gate, Celeste said. Reporters, 3 vans. Nova's knees nearly gave out. This can't be happening. Damon moved to the window. From there, he could see them. Cameras flashing at the end of the long driveway. Microphones pointed toward the iron gates. He turned back to her. You're not leaving this house until I say so. You can't lock me up. I'm protecting you. You're protecting yourself. He stepped closer. You think this is easy for me? I've spent 2 years avoiding headlines, building privacy around my grief. And now you? Now I what? She demanded. Now I ruined your perfect narrative? He went silent. Nova shook her head, tears threatening to spill. You're right, Damon. You are protecting something. But it's not me, and it's not those babies. It's your image. She brushed past him and left the room. Celeste sighed. You really do know how to love in the most destructive way possible. I'm not loving anyone, Damon muttered. Then stop looking at her like you are, Celeste said softly. He didn't respond. Hours passed before he saw Nova again. She'd locked herself in the East guest room, ignoring the staff, the phone calls, and the chaos outside. When she finally stepped out, it was late evening. The reporters were gone, replaced by crickets and silence. Damon found her on the back terrace, sitting alone under the dim garden lights. She looked exhausted. Her face turned up toward the night sky. He walked over quietly. You haven't eaten all day. Wasn't hungry. He stood beside her. You shouldn't shut me out. She laughed softly. Says the man who built walls for a living. He sighed. You're right. I don't know how to do this. Any of it. She looked at him then. Really looked. Why did you do it, Damon? Why the surrogacy? Why couldn't you just move on? He hesitated. Because I made a promise? To Vanessa? He nodded. Before she died, she told me she wanted our legacy to live, even if she couldn't. I said I'd make it happen. Nova studied him quietly. And when that promise got twisted into something else, he turned away. Then, I guess, I became the villain in my own story. She shook her head. You're not a villain. You're just broken. Something in his chest ached at her words. He sat down beside her, their shoulders nearly touching. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The night air hummed with tension, and something neither of them could name. Finally, Nova whispered, You know what's funny? I used to pray for a miracle. I just didn't think it would come disguised as chaos. Damon looked at her, voice low. Maybe that's what miracles are. Chaos we haven't learned to appreciate yet. Their eyes met. And for the first time since all of it began, neither of them looked away. Inside, Celeste watched from the hallway window. She smiled faintly and whispered to herself, and just like that, the house starts breathing again. Outside, Damon and Nova sat in silence. Two people on opposite sides of a broken promise, now bound by something neither of them could undo. And somewhere between the pain, the scandal, and the quiet truth of that night, something unspoken began to bloom. Not love, not yet, but something dangerously close. The next morning broke soft and gold, the kind of light that tried to convince the world it had never known pain. Inside the Pierce estate, it didn't work. Nova woke to the sound of her phone vibrating on the nightstand. She'd stopped checking news alerts 2 days ago, but habit made her glance anyway. A new headline glared back at her. Pierce surrogate speaks, or does she? She exhaled sharply. Fake quotes, fake photos, fake everything. The internet had decided what kind of woman she was before she'd said a word. She pulled on a robe and stepped into the hallway. Downstairs, voices echoed. Damon's low baritone tangled with another man's. The tone wasn't friendly. She followed the sound to the study and froze at the doorway. A man she didn't recognize stood across from Damon. Sharp gray suit, perfect fade, a smile that looked like it charged interest. You've got reporters on your lawn, board members, calling for explanations, and a woman living in your guest wing carrying your, well, let's call them miracles, the man said smoothly. You think your investors won't panic? Watch your words, Ellis, Damon replied, tone flat, but dangerous. That woman has a name. Sure, Ellis said with a laugh. Nova Carter, former nurse from East Point. 4 years at Mercy General, terminated over a medical error that cost her license renewal. You didn't think I'd check? Nova's breath caught. She stepped back instinctively, heart pounding. Damon's posture stiffened. How did you get that file? He asked quietly. Public record, my friend. The internet remembers everything. Leave her out of this, Ellis smirked. You brought her into it. You want to save your empire? Distance yourself before she drags you down. Damon stepped closer, voice low and razor-edged. Say her name again like that and you'll regret it. Ellis raised his hands, still smiling. I'll take that as a no. He buttoned his jacket. Just a friendly reminder, Damon. The world forgives grief. But it doesn't forgive scandal. When he left, Nova stayed hidden until she heard the front door shut. Then she stepped into the study, anger trembling under her skin. You didn't tell me people were digging through my past. Damon turned, eyes softening. Nova. Don't Nova me. That man knows more about my life than you do. And he's using it like a weapon. I'll handle him. You can't handle everyone who thinks I don't deserve to be here. His jaw tightened. You think I'm not trying to protect you? Protect me? She laughed bitterly. From what? Reality? You can't buy silence forever, Damon. At some point people will talk, and I'm the one they'll call names for it. I know, he said quietly. That's why I need you to trust me. She folded her arms. You want trust? Start with honesty. What else are you hiding? He hesitated too long. She noticed. Damon? He exhaled, finally looking at her. Ellis isn't just an associate. He's the one who financed the fertility wing at Sterling Memorial. The same wing where the embryo transfer happened. Nova blinked. You're saying he's connected to the clinic? Yes. Then, he could have... He nodded grimly. He could have caused the mix-up. She stepped closer. You think he switched the files? I think he wanted leverage, and now he has it. Nova's pulse raced. So all of this, my pregnancy, the scandal, wasn't an accident. I don't know yet, Damon admitted. But I'll find out. She stared at him, half shocked, half furious. You can't just play detective with people's lives. What if it's true, Damon? What if someone planned this? Then I make them regret it. His tone was calm, but the promise underneath sent a chill down her spine. Don't, she said softly. Don't become like them. He looked at her, eyes burning with exhaustion and something else. Fear. You really think I could? I think pain makes people do things they swore they'd never do, she whispered. He didn't answer. That night, the estate held its breath again. Damon disappeared into his office. Nova tried to sleep but couldn't. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ellis's smirk, that file, her name being torn apart by strangers. Around midnight, she gave up and wandered downstairs for water. The kitchen was dim, except for the fridge light. She poured a glass and nearly jumped when a voice said, "You're up late." It was Celeste, wrapped in a silk robe, her silver hair shining like moonlight. Couldn't sleep, Nova. See. Celeste smiled knowingly. Neither could he. Nova hesitated. He told you? I've known my son since he was in diapers, Celeste said softly. When he's pacing his study, the world's ending. When he's quiet, the world's beginning again. Nova sipped her water. He's complicated. Celeste chuckled. That's a polite word for stubborn. Damon's been trying to fix everyone's pain but his own since the day Vanessa died. I can't compete with a ghost, Nova said quietly. Celeste studied her. You're not supposed to. Ghosts fade when the living start shining again. Nova smiled faintly. You talk like a poet. Age gives you better metaphors, Celeste said with a wink. Now go check on him. He's been sitting in that office for hours, pretending bourbon is therapy. Nova hesitated, but went. The door to the study was half open, soft light spilling into the hall. Damon sat at his desk, tie loose, laptop open, papers scattered. The weight of the world hung off his shoulders. Your mother says bourbon isn't therapy, she said, gently. He looked up, surprised, then almost smiled. She's been saying that for 30 years. Nova stepped closer. You shouldn't be alone right now. I'm not good company. Lucky for you, I didn't come for conversation. He blinked. Then why? She shrugged lightly. Because I don't know what tomorrow looks like, and tonight felt too long to face alone. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Then he motioned toward the chair across from him. She sat. He poured 2 glasses of bourbon but didn't hand hers over until she nodded. She took a sip. Burning, sharp, strangely comforting. You ever wish you could start over? She asked quietly. Every day, he said. Then why don't you? He looked at her, voice low. Because I don't know how. The honesty in his tone cracked something in her. She leaned back, studying him. The tired lines around his eyes, the roughness in his voice. He wasn't a billionaire right now. He was just a man who'd lost too much. You think strength is silence, she said softly. It's not. Sometimes strength is letting someone else help you carry the noise. He looked at her for a long time before whispering. And sometimes silence is the only thing that keeps you from breaking. She nodded slowly. Maybe. But you're already breaking, Damon. You just don't want anyone to see it. He opened his mouth, then stopped. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. Vanessa used to say the same thing. Nova's heart tightened. You loved her deeply. She saved me, he said simply. Before her, I was a mess of ambition and ego. She grounded me, and when she got sick, I promised I'd finish everything she started. That's all I had left. Nova's voice softened. And now? He looked at her, eyes steady. Now I don't know what I have. Their gaze held longer than either meant it to. The silence between them shifted. Less sharp, more fragile. When she finally stood to leave, he caught her wrist gently. Nova. She froze. His thumb brushed her hand, a touch so light it almost didn't happen. You shouldn't believe everything the world says about you. Her throat tightened. Then, tell me what you believe. He hesitated, then said quietly, that you're the only honest thing that's happened to me in a very long time. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. The air between them said enough. When she finally walked away, her pulse wouldn't slow. Upstairs, Celeste peeked from the hallway corner, watching the door close. She smiled faintly and whispered, Lord, keep them gentle this time. The next morning, the peace shattered again. Damon woke to his phone ringing nonstop. He answered, voice rough. Yeah? Royce's voice came through, sharp and urgent. You need to get to the office. Ellis leaked financial records. He's implying you paid off the surrogate before the pregnancy even started. Damon froze. That's impossible. It doesn't matter if it's true. The media's already running with it. Damon swore under his breath. I'm on my way. Nova stood in the doorway, having heard everything. What does that mean? She asked quietly. It means the story just got worse. He grabbed his jacket and keys, eyes already calculating. Stay here. Don't talk to anyone. My PR team will handle the rest. Handle? She echoed. You mean Barry? He looked at her, voice heavy. I mean, survive. She wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped her. It wasn't arrogance. It was fear. When he left, the house fell silent again. Nova went to the balcony, the city skyline faint in the distance. Somewhere down there, people were talking about her life like it was entertainment. She pressed a hand over her stomach and whispered, We're not their story. We're ours. Hours later, Damon returned, exhausted but calmer. He found her sitting in the garden, barefoot in the grass, sunlight catching in her curls. He stopped for a moment, just watching. The chaos of his day felt miles away. When she looked up and saw him, she smiled faintly. Rough day? You have no idea. Then sit, she said softly. You look like you've been running from ghosts again. He sank beside her. They'll keep coming, she said, until you stop letting them. He glanced at her. And how exactly do I do that? By remembering that the living still need you. He looked at her belly, then back at her. They'll hate me for what I'm about to do. What are you about to do? Tell the truth, Nova frowned. To the press? To everyone, he said. I'm done hiding. She nodded slowly. Then I'll stand with you. You don't have to. I want to. He stared at her for a long moment, then smiled. Small, tired, real. You're impossible. Good, she said. You need impossible. The evening wind carried their laughter across the garden, soft and fleeting, like a promise the world hadn't yet learned to break. Neither of them knew it yet, but that decision, to tell the truth, would set off the storm that defined everything after. Because love doesn't always begin with a kiss. Sometimes, it begins with a choice. By the time the morning news rolled across every screen in America, Damon Pierce's face was everywhere. The billionaire no one thought could break was breaking in real time. He stood at a podium outside the Pierce Foundation building in downtown Chicago, cameras flashing like lightning around him. His suit was dark, clean, deliberate. His words were anything but rehearsed. The world's made up its own story, he said into the microphones, voice low but steady. So, let me tell you mine. Yes, I hired a surrogate. Yes, the pregnancy was the result of a clinic mistake. And yes, those children are mine. But the woman carrying them, Nova Carter, is not a scandal. She is a survivor of a system that treats women's bodies like contracts instead of lives. She deserves respect, not ridicule. It wasn't what his PR team wanted. It wasn't safe. But it was human, and that made it dangerous. When he stepped away, reporters screamed questions. Are you in love with her? Are you two living together? Is this about guilt or romance? He didn't answer. He just walked off stage, jaw tight, eyes straight ahead. Back at the estate, Nova sat on the couch, watching the broadcast with Celeste. The older woman dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief. That boy finally grew a backbone, Celeste muttered. Took him long enough. Nova's heart raced. He shouldn't have done that. They'll come for him harder now. Celeste smiled faintly. They were already coming. At least this time he's running towards something instead of away from it. Before Nova could respond, the doorbell rang. Sharp, insistent, repeated. Celeste frowned. That'll be the vultures. But it wasn't the press. It was Yvette Coleman, Damon's longtime assistant, a woman whose loyalty had once been legendary. Perfect posture, sharp bob, eyes cold as glass. Mr. Pierce asked me to check on you, she said, stepping inside without waiting for permission. And to deliver these. She handed Nova a sealed envelope. The logo on the flap made her heart skip. Pierce Holdings Legal Division. What's this? Nova asked. An updated contract, Yvette said smoothly. Standard procedure, given recent publicity. Celeste raised an eyebrow. Updated how? Yvette smiled without warmth. It protects Ms. Carter and Mr. Pierce. New non-disclosure clauses, compensation adjustments, media restrictions. You'll want to sign today. Nova hesitated. Did Damon tell you to bring this? Yvette's smile thinned. He authorized it. Celeste folded her arms. Funny. He told me last night there'd be no new paperwork. For the first time, Yvette's mask slipped. A flicker of irritation crossed her face. Things change quickly, Mrs. Pierce. Nova felt her stomach twist. Something wasn't right. I'll read it later, she said, quietly. Yvette's tone cooled further. That wouldn't be wise. The longer you wait, the more risk for everyone involved. Celeste stepped forward, her voice smooth but firm. Sweetheart, in this house we don't make scared women sign contracts before breakfast. You can see yourself out. Yvette's jaw tightened. As you wish. She turned on her heel, leaving the envelope on the table. The moment the door closed, Celeste picked it up, turning it over. You feel that? She murmured. That's not trust. That's threat. Nova exhaled shakily. Why would Damon's assistant? Because loyalty's a currency, Celeste said. And people sell it when they're desperate. Nova opened the envelope anyway. Inside, the pages weren't from Pierce Legal at all. They were letterhead from Ellis Investments. Her pulse spiked. Oh no. Celeste's eyes narrowed. That snake. They didn't have time to call Damon before it started. Within an hour, social media exploded again. This time with leaked voice recordings, conveniently edited, painting Nova as a manipulator who'd targeted Damon. A soundbite from Yvette's phone call appeared online. He thinks she's innocent, but she planned this. I've seen women like her before. Nova stared at the screen in disbelief. That's her voice. That's his assistant. Celeste squeezed her hand. Don't you dare cry, baby. This is war. Not heartbreak. Nova blinked hard, fighting tears. They're saying I trapped him, that I'm some kind of gold digger. Celeste looked her dead in the eye. Then you let them say it, and you make the truth louder. That afternoon, Damon stormed through the front door, phone still in hand, anger radiating off him. Where is she? He demanded. Yvette? Celeste asked. Gone, Nova said quietly. She was here this morning. She tried to make me sign a fake contract. Damon froze. What? From Ellis Investments, Celeste added. He cursed under his breath, running a hand through his hair. I should have fired her months ago. Too late now, Celeste said calmly. She already sold her piece of the story. Damon turned to Nova, guilt heavy in his voice. I'm so sorry. I brought that woman into your life. Nova shook her head. Don't apologize. Just fix it. He nodded once. I will. Hours later, as the estate filled with PR advisors and lawyers, Nova retreated to the balcony for air. The sun was sinking, staining the sky orange and pink, too beautiful for the kind of chaos her life had become. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't headlines. It was a message from an unknown number. Meet me at the gate. I can prove who set you up. Nova's heart hammered. She should have deleted it, told Damon, ignored it completely. But curiosity is a dangerous kind of hope. She grabbed her coat and walked outside. At the gate stood a woman around her age, brown skin glowing under the fading light, hair wrapped in a patterned scarf. She looked nervous, but determined. Are you Nova Carter? The woman asked. Yes. I'm Tiana, one of the nurses at Sterling Fertility. I shouldn't even be here. Nova's breath caught. The clinic? Tiana nodded. I saw what they did. The file swap, the false data entries. Ellis ordered it. He wanted the embryos transferred to someone outside his network. Someone who wouldn't be traced back if things went wrong. Nova felt her knees weaken. Why? Tiana looked away. Money. Blackmail. The Pierces were the perfect headline. A grieving billionaire, a replacement mother, a miracle gone wrong. He planned the story before it even happened. Nova's throat tightened. You're saying none of this was an accident? It was engineered, Tiana whispered. And Yvette helped him. She was the go-between. Before Nova could respond, the sound of tires crunched behind them. A black SUV rolled to a stop inside the gate. Damon jumped out, eyes wild. Nova. She turned. It's okay. She's... But Tiana was already backing away. I have to go. They're watching me. Wait. Nova reached out, but the woman was gone, disappearing into the dusk like smoke. Damon reached her seconds later, breath heavy. What the hell are you doing out here? She's from the clinic, Nova said quickly. She said Ellis set everything up. The switch, the leak, all of it. Yvette helped. He stared at her, disbelief and fury tangled in his eyes. You sure? Yes. He nodded, slowly, voice low. Then we have what we need. Nova frowned. What do you mean? He looked at her, determination returning like armor. We end this. Publicly. Legally. Permanently. She shook her head. You're going back to war again. He stepped closer. No, I'm going to war for you this time. The next day, the Pierce press team called an emergency conference at the estate. Nova hated the idea, but knew there was no running from it anymore. When she stepped into the main hall, the room fell silent. Dozens of reporters stood shoulder to shoulder. Cameras, microphones, flashing lights. Damon stood beside her, suit perfect, face unreadable. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "you've heard every version of our story, except the truth. It's time you did." He told them everything. The fertility program, the embryo switch, the corruption, the threats. Then he turned to Nova, hand open, eyes steady. "Ms. Carter has been portrayed as a manipulator. She is not. She's the victim of a crime designed to destroy us both. And together, we're making sure it never happens to another woman again." The crowd erupted in questions. Nova's pulse roared in her ears. She hadn't planned to speak, but when she looked at Damon, something inside her said, "Now." She stepped forward, her voice shaking only for a second. "People can say what they want about me, but what they can't say is that I gave up. I didn't sign up to be famous. I signed up to help. And somehow, in all this mess, I found the one thing I wasn't looking for. Truth." The cameras clicked like thunder. In that moment, the narrative shifted. Not from scandal to fairy tale, but from rumor to reality. And as Damon's hand found hers beneath the podium, Nova realized something. All this time she'd been trying to survive his world. But maybe, just maybe, she was meant to rebuild it with him instead. That night, when the lights went out and the headlines changed, the estate was finally quiet. Celeste peeked into the living room where Damon and Nova sat together on the couch, the glow of the fireplace painting their faces in gold and shadow. "You two finally breathe alike," she said softly. "Took long enough." Nova smiled tiredly. "We're getting there." Celeste winked. "Then you better hold on. Peace doesn't last long in this family." They laughed, the first real laughter in weeks. Outside, the night was calm. Inside, two people who never should have crossed paths were starting to believe they might just belong to the same story after all. But the peace wouldn't hold. Because in the world Damon Pierce lived in, every truth came with a price, and their bill hadn't been paid yet. The world had changed overnight. After the press conference, Nova's name trended for 2 days straight. Hashtags bloomed like wildfire, some in support, others dripping with cruelty. Damon's reputation, once untouchable, divided public opinion straight down the middle. Half the world saw a man brave enough to tell the truth. The other half saw a billionaire in love with his scandal. Inside the Pierce estate, life felt almost still. But stillness, Nova had learned, often meant the storm was gathering somewhere else. She stood by the window in the morning light, staring out over the lake behind the property. The water rippled gently, catching the sun like glass. For the first time in months, she felt something close to calm. Then Celeste appeared behind her, a tablet in hand and that look. The one that always meant, "You're not gonna like this, baby." "Morning," Celeste said softly. "Morning," Nova replied. "You've got that tone again," Celeste sighed. "Because there's always something." Ellis posted his response. Nova turned sharply. "What?" Celeste handed her the tablet. There he was, Ellis Vaughn, sitting in some studio chair, all charm and poison. "The truth," he was saying to the interviewer, "is that Damon Pierce's entire story is a fabrication. The clinic mix-up, manufactured, the surrogate, complicit. This is about money, control, and sympathy. Classic Pierce. PR." Nova felt her stomach twist. Celeste folded her arms. Man couldn't tell the truth if it paid his mortgage. The video cut to clips of headlines, photos of Nova, even shots of the press conference. If you look at her background, Ellis continued, she's not the naive nurse Damon paints her as. She's smart, strategic, and she knows exactly how to turn scandal into power. Nova shut the tablet off, pulse thundering. He's trying to bury me alive. Celeste nodded grimly. Baby, men like him always try. But let me tell you something about dirt. It grows flowers, too. Nova managed a weak smile. You always know what to say. I raised a billionaire who forgot what love sounded like. I got practice, Celeste said, patting her shoulder. Damon found them a few minutes later. He looked exhausted but steady. I saw it, he said before Nova could even speak. My lawyers are on it. He's doubling down, Nova said quietly. I expected that. He's desperate. The investigation into his company's finances is gaining traction. He's trying to redirect the narrative before it lands on him. Does it help? Nova asked. Damon met her eyes. It helps if we stay quiet. Let him run out of rope. She crossed her arms. I'm tired of being quiet, Damon. He paused. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe it's time I speak for myself. On camera. My words. My truth. He frowned. That's exactly what he wants. To bait you. Or maybe it's what I need, she said. I can't spend my life hiding in your shadow. Damon's voice softened. I'm not asking you to hide. No, she said quietly. But you're still trying to protect me from a world that already knows my name. They stared at each other, silence thick with things neither wanted to admit. Then Celeste cleared her throat. Well, before you two solve the world's PR crisis, I'm going to get my coffee. You can keep arguing. I'll be in the garden pretending to mind my business. She left them alone, smiling faintly as she went. Damon exhaled. You want to tell your story? Yes. He nodded slowly. Then we do it together. Nova blinked. You'd really... I won't let you face that alone, he said simply. If you're brave enough to stand in front of the world again, then so am I. A small smile touched her lips. Then, let's do it right. 2 days later, they filmed the interview. An exclusive with Ebony News Today, a network that had stood by Nova when others tore her apart. The set was simple. Soft lighting, neutral tones, quiet dignity. Damon sat beside her, but the focus was on her. The interviewer, a warm-eyed woman named Tamika Rhodes, started gently. Nova, the world's heard every version of your story but yours. Who are you in all of this? Nova smiled faintly. I'm a woman who made a promise to help someone start a family, and ended up building one of her own. Tamika nodded. There are people who still believe this was intentional, that you planned to end up in Mr. Pierce's life. Nova took a deep breath. If loving someone after chaos makes you guilty, then I guess I am. But I didn't plan this. I didn't manipulate anything. I was trying to survive. And sometimes survival puts you right where you're meant to be, even if the world doesn't understand how you got there. Tamika's gaze softened. You sound like someone who's forgiven a lot. I had to, Nova said. Otherwise, I'd still be angry. At him, at life, at God. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It just means you stop letting pain narrate your story. The silence that followed was raw and beautiful. When the interview ended, Tamika turned to Damon. And you, Mr. Pierce, are you ready for what comes next? He glanced at Nova before answering. If it's truth, yes. If it's peace, even better. That night, the interview aired, and for once, the internet didn't break. It listened. Nova Carter Speaks trended within hours. People reposted her words with captions like, "She didn't ask to be a symbol, she just told her truth." It was the first time since the chaos began that the comments didn't sting. By morning, the house felt different. Light again. Almost safe. Until the email came. Damon was in his study when it arrived. An anonymous address, no subject line, just a single attachment. He hesitated before opening it. Inside was a video file. The footage was grainy, time-stamped from 3 months earlier. The fertility clinic hallway. Nova's image on screen. Blurry but visible, speaking with Dr. Langston Price. The audio was faint, but enough to make his blood run cold. "Are you sure about this, Miss Carter? The embryos—" "Yes," Nova's voice replied softly. "It's what he wanted. He doesn't have to know." The clip ended abruptly. For a long minute, Damon couldn't breathe. The words looped in his head like static. It didn't sound like her. Not completely. But it was her voice. He replayed it again and again, searching for something. Context. Manipulation. Anything that made it make sense. When Nova walked in a few minutes later, smiling faintly from the morning sun, he didn't greet her. "You lied to me," her smile faltered. "What?" He turned the laptop around. "What is this?" She frowned, stepping closer. "Where did you get that?" "Answer the question." She watched the video. Disbelief spreading across her face. "That's edited. That's not what I said." "Then what did you say?" "I asked Dr. Price if the procedure was safe after he mentioned the embryos. I never said he doesn't have to know." "Then how—" "Someone cut it," she said quickly. "It's Ellis. Damon. Please." But he wasn't listening anymore. His eyes were dark, distant, calculating. "Every time I think we've escaped it," he said softly, "something else drags us back." "Because they're trying to destroy us," she said. "Not because I did anything wrong." He rubbed his temples, breathing hard. "You have to understand how it looks." Her voice trembled. "After everything I've done to prove I'm telling the truth. You still doubt me?" "Nova?" "No," she said, stepping back. "Don't Nova me. You said we'd do this together. You said you believed me." "I do." "Then stop acting like you don't." He went silent. She shook her head, tears spilling over. "You're not protecting me, Damon. You're protecting yourself from the possibility that I might hurt you. But I'm not them. I'm not your enemies. I'm not your past." He looked up slowly. "Then help me believe that." She stared at him for a long time, heartbreaking. Belief doesn't come with proof. It comes with trust. And right now, you don't have either. She turned and walked out before he could stop her. When the door closed, the sound felt final. Upstairs, Celeste watched from the balcony, her heart heavy. "Lord," she whispered, "why do men always test love right when they finally find it?" Nova didn't leave the estate, but she might as well have. She spent the next few days in silence, avoiding him. The house felt split in half, his pride on one side, her pain on the other. Late one night, she sat in the conservatory, surrounded by glass and moonlight, whispering to herself, "You knew this wouldn't be easy. But you didn't think he'd break your heart trying to save it." Down the hall, Damon lay awake, the video replaying in his mind like a curse. The more he watched it, the less he believed it. Because he'd seen her eyes when she swore it was fake, and Nova's eyes had never lied to him. The next morning, he called Royce. "Trace the email. I want to know who sent it, where from, and how it was altered." Within hours, Royce sent proof. Metadata, timestamps, IPs. It all pointed back to Ellis. Damon's chest went tight. He spliced her voice from the clinic footage. Royce nodded. "It's a deepfake, man. A good one. But fake. Damon stood, guilt flooding him like fire. I have to fix this. You better hurry, Royce warned. Because Ellis just sold that clip to 3 networks. When Damon found Nova in the conservatory, she didn't look up. He stood there for a moment, before speaking. It was fake. The video. It wasn't you. She didn't answer. He stepped closer. I should have trusted you. Still nothing. He finally knelt in front of her chair. Nova, I let fear speak louder than faith. That's on me. Her eyes finally lifted, glossy with tears. Do you know what it feels like to keep proving your innocence to someone who says they love you? He closed his eyes. I do now. She studied him, the fight in her softening just slightly. Then say what you came here to say. I was wrong, he whispered. And I'm sorry. The silence that followed felt like a verdict. Finally, she reached out, taking his hand. Then stop being sorry and start being sure. He nodded, relief breaking across his face like light. I'm sure now. Good, she said softly. Because we're about to need each other more than ever. He frowned. What do you mean? She handed him her phone. A new notification glowed at the top of the screen. Another email. This one had only 2 words. Round 2. Before we continue, if you've made it this far, I just want to say your support means the world to this channel. Every subscribe, like, and comment helps me keep creating stories like this for you. Now, let's finish what we started. The morning broke heavy and gray, as if the sky already knew what was coming. Inside the Pierce estate, silence pressed against the walls like a held breath. Damon sat at his desk, staring at the words on Nova's phone. Round 2. 2 words, but they carried the weight of everything they'd already survived, and everything that was still waiting to destroy them. Nova stood across from him, arms folded. It's Ellis, she said quietly. He's not done. Damon nodded, jaw tight. He's never done. But this time, neither are we. Royce burst through the door moments later, a stack of folders in his hand. You're going to want to see this. Ellis just filed a lawsuit. Claims defamation and breach of contract. Says you fabricated evidence about the embryo switch. Damon leaned back slowly. He's suing us? After everything he did? Royce shrugged. He's pulling every move he can before the feds finish their audit. This is his last act before the walls close in. Nova frowned. Can he win? Royce hesitated. If he convinces the public first, maybe. Lawsuits are about narrative as much as law. Damon's gaze hardened. Then we change the narrative. He looked at Nova, and for once there was no hesitation. Just resolve. I want you beside me when we go public again. Not as my surrogate, not as a headline. As my partner. Nova blinked. Partner? In every way that matters, he said softly. You've stood beside me when it was hell. I won't face heaven without you. She held his gaze, her heartbeat unsteady. You're serious. I've never been more. For the first time in days, she smiled. Small, real. Dangerous in the best way. Then let's do it. By afternoon, the world was watching again. The press conference had been announced only an hour before. But reporters were already lined up outside the building. Cameras waited, questions loaded like bullets. Except this time, Damon and Nova didn't flinch. They stepped up to the podium together. The air outside was cold and sharp, the kind that carried sound for miles. Damon began first, voice low but certain. There's been another round of accusations, more lies, more noise, but truth doesn't tire as easily as deceit. So let's end this here. He motioned toward the screen behind them. Royce had arranged the footage. Not manipulated this time. Real surveillance. Real timestamps. It showed Ellis Vaughn meeting with Dr. Price months before the scandal began. and exchanging a sealed envelope. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "This," Damon said, "is the face of manipulation. The man who tried to control families like data, who used women's lives as currency, and who built an empire on secrets." Reporters shouted questions, flashes exploded. But then Nova stepped forward. Her voice carried calm through the chaos. "I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for closure. There are women like me all over this country who've been silenced, erased, and rewritten by people like Ellis Vaughn. This isn't about billionaires or headlines anymore. It's about truth. And I refuse to let fear dictate mine." There was a pause. Not silence, but stillness. The kind of stillness that happens when truth lands exactly where it's meant to. Then applause broke out. First slow, hesitant, then strong. Real. Inside, Damon felt something he hadn't in years. Peace that didn't come from control, but from surrender. As the press dispersed, Royce approached, phone in hand. "You're not going to believe this. Ellis just got picked up by federal investigators. Someone tipped them off." Damon raised an eyebrow. "Who?" Royce grinned. "Anonymous source. But I'm guessing she wears designer heels and doesn't scare easy." They both looked at Nova. She shrugged. "Let's just say I finally learned how to make the system work for me." Damon smiled, the kind of smile that reached his eyes for the first time in months. That night, the estate was quiet again. The kind of quiet that didn't ache anymore. Celeste sat out on the terrace with her tea, watching them through the window. Nova was curled up on the couch, laughing softly as Damon tried, and failed, to cook dinner. He burned the garlic, dropped a pan, and swore under his breath. Nova laughed so hard she nearly cried. "For a man who runs a multi-billion-dollar company, you sure can't handle a stove." He smirked. "Cooking is about risk. I delegate risk." "You mean you avoid it," she teased. "Correction," he said, stepping closer. "I avoid needless risk. You, for example." "We're not needless." She smiled up at him, eyes warm. "That might be the smoothest apology I've ever heard. It's the truest one I've got." He leaned down, and for a moment the world outside the window stopped moving. The kiss wasn't perfect. It didn't need to be. It was tired, real, earned. The kind that only happens when two people finally stop fighting the same war on opposite sides. Celeste smiled to herself, whispering, "About damn time." Later, when the house was dark, Damon and Nova sat on the back porch in silence. The night air was soft, the lake calm. Moonlight gliding over the surface like silver paint. "Do you ever think about how strange it all is?" Nova asked quietly. "How everything fell apart just to fall into place again?" He nodded. "Every day." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "If you could go back, would you change anything?" He thought for a long moment before answering. "Only the parts that hurt you." She smiled faintly. "But those are the parts that brought us here." He looked down at her. Then, maybe pain was the price of purpose. For a while, they just sat there. No words, no promises. Just peace. Then her phone buzzed. It was an email from Tamika Rhodes, the journalist who had interviewed them. "Nova, I thought you should know. The Foundation Board voted tonight. They're establishing a new program in your name. The Nova Carter Initiative for Ethical Fertility Care. Damon nominated it himself." Her throat tightened. She turned to him, eyes glistening. "You did this?" He shrugged. "You gave me something worth believing in again. I figured it was time the world saw that too." She blinked back tears. "You're unbelievable." "I'm trying to be," he said softly. "For you." She smiled, brushing a tear away. "You already are." They stayed there until the moon climbed higher, until the night felt full again instead of hollow. Somewhere deep inside, they both knew life wouldn't suddenly become easy. Scars don't fade overnight. But this was a start, a beginning they'd earned. As the screen door creaked closed behind them, Celeste's voice carried faintly from inside. "Y'all better get some rest. Tomorrow's gonna need y'all strong again." Nova laughed quietly. "She's right, you know." Damon smiled, his arm wrapping around her shoulders. "Then let's start with tonight." And for the first time in a very long time, they did. And if this story moved you, if you felt every moment of it, don't forget, your support means everything. Subscribe, like, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from, so I can shout out your city in the next story.